Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. I'm RJ.
I'm Kalhil.
Every day, just like you, we find ourselves trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we call life. As peers in the healthcare profession, we find ourselves discussing and debating many different topics. After many heated debates, we decided to expand upon these topics and give them to you from our viewpoints as licensed therapists and social workers. If this is your first time here, we'd like to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and become part of the tribe and participate in the conversations. So today, we have a returning guest, my sister Anna. So Anna and I have talked about this topic on many different occasions. Different things have brought it up, but we've always kind of, talked about it. And I thought it was important that we talked about it today. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about independence versus interdependence. So in today's society, we find ourselves being inundated with people saying that independence is a necessary social thing that individuals that reach a certain age should obtain to. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think that being independent is an achievement that we should all strive for and work towards. But is it the highest form of character development? I think that's the bigger question. For most of us, independence is seen as I can do things by myself. I'm responsible. I'm self-reliant. I don't need anybody or anything else. And that's the problem. I feel like for most of us, we conceptualize and compartmentalize independence as us being an island or a country all to ourselves. And that at times we develop a fear of being dependent on others. This in turn makes us a little skittish and a little leery or fearful of others telling us what to do, having some form of control over us, defining us in some way, manipulating us, or being too pushy in regards to what they think we should be doing. But for independence, is it actually the mindset that will allow us to be the best version of ourselves? So I've seen that as a science nerd, I can tell you that everything in the world is interdependent in some form or fashion. Everything in nature understands understands the need for both mutual and symbiotic relationships to maintain the natural cycle. As human beings, we are no different than other things in nature. And interdependence often gets misconstrued by people and is seen as being forced to rely on others, colleagues, a spouse or a partner, or even our parents. And as a result, people often forego these relationships and social responsibilities and their commitments to try to be more independent. So Anna and I have always talked about this like back and forth, and I've even talked about this with Kalhil and Unique as well. And I thought that this was something that we needed to talk about today, because I think that for today's society, we kind of have it misconstrued about how things should be. I personally think that it's good to have a little bit of both, to find that sweet spot in the middle, that it's okay to be independent, but it's also okay to be interdependent based off of history and where we come from with clans and tribes and, cities and towns. Like, we survived to become who we are as a species because we were relying on each other. I personally feel like it doesn't make you weaker or less than to allow other people to help you or to even want to help other people. So what do you guys think about it?
I will say that I have struggled with the independent versus interdependence thing myself within my own life. I like to think of myself more times than not as someone who is very independent. And I think that I am to a very large extent, but I have realized as I've, aged and matured that I need people. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. However, when you operate off of the mindset that I can't rely on anybody else, I can't trust anybody else, it's exhausting. Truly, it's exhausting. So when you like humble yourself just a little bit, just a tinge, not a whole lot, and you ask for help, like, life becomes so much sweeter. The air is cleaner, and you breathe better, and you sleep better, and your appetite is better. So for me personally, like, I've definitely struggled with that. Even with just taking care of my child, I try not to ask for help. If I can't find a care provider at a childcare center or something like that, then I'm like, forget it. I'll just do it myself. And I've had family members tell me, like, you can ask us for help. That's literally what we're here for. And I don't like to, because my help is not always going to be there. However, when they've stepped in to kind of corral my crazy, it's worked out in my favor at every turn.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in that regard. I think that for most of us, when we waffle back and forth or wobble back and forth between the camp of being independent versus interdependent, it stems from a scarcity mindset or an absence mindset, where if I don't have something, I need to be able to have it for myself. Right. If I don't have the help, I need to be able to get it. And I mean, I completely understand that, because I mean, you think about it, like the things that a lot of us take for granted, like here in the United States, we don't have to fight over resources, because there's enough resources for everybody. There's enough water, there's enough land, there's enough food, there's enough air. So we're not fighting over it. So I never have to worry about it. But when things get real and you do not have those things, it then becomes a struggle. It now becomes a fight. And so your mindset of not having something versus having something, it's completely different. And I think that it shapes that. I think that, absence fosters independence, while presence fosters interdependence. Like when you have the help and it's constantly present and available, you're more likely to receive it. Yes. Versus when you don't have the help, you don't have the assistance, you're just like, I got to figure out how I can get that.
Right. Well, society has changed. We've gone through a transition, you know what I mean, from the 1800s on till the present millennium. We were dependent on our agriculture, right? You needed to have a lot of people in your family, and collectively, which would make us a collectivist culture, we had to depend on one another to make sure that, hey, the crops grew on time, the crops got watered. If you had cattle, that the cattle was raised properly, that you were milking it, and everybody, your neighbors and everybody were really dependent on one another, right? In order to keep that society afloat. Now that we don't do that, this society that we're in, the social aspect has changed. It's more, hey, individualistic. I got to take care of me. I need to get it for me. If I don't have it, I'm gonna have to find a way to get it. And I think the buzzword that I wanted to bring up, I thought one of you all were going to bring it up, is the codependent thing. Yeah, that's the new buzzword that you hear around. Well, I'm not codependent and this and that, because there's a negative connotation, because it is a negative situation, codependence. But interdependence is what we all strive for, to be able to use the appropriate resources, all right, and an appropriate help that you have, and do that in a way where, yes, it's beneficial, but you can also give back. And I think people struggle with that, because if I don't have it, all right, but you two do, and you say, well, Kalhil, I can help you with this right now because, we have some free time. That's not bad. If I come to you every week and I'm like, Anna, I need you every single week, and I can't survive without you, that would be leaning on codependence. And if I don't have you and you're not there, yes, I don't know what to do. You get what I'm saying? So for sure, I have to, sometimes I have to kind of explain that to my patients. And I'm like, look, nobody is saying that you always are going to need this help. But for right now, your family is a resource. Or right now, you might have to rely on someone, on some government assistance for right now. This doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. And it's very hard to get that in the head of some people. And then you get the people who are so codependent. I'm trying to allow them to, or enable them to remove themselves from being dependent on their parents or being dependent on a spouse, so much so that it hinders them. You get what I'm saying? So trying to do that is one of the most difficult things for a clinician to do. Once I diagnose how that family system's running, and I'm like, okay, there's some enmeshment, there's some codependency, how can we get this person to stand up on their own 2 feet and still be interdependent? And it's hard because they think you're trying to make me do this all by myself. No, you are allowed to use the resources that are available to you.
And see, I like what you said there about teaching. I think that for a lot of us, not being taught how to do either one or both is the problem, because people can only do what they've been shown and what they've been taught. So, traditionally men are taught to be independent.
Right.
And traditionally women are taught to be interdependent. It's the man's job to provide. It's the man's job to do this. It's the man's job to do that. And that's what the man's job is to do. And this is the woman's job, and the woman should be doing this, and the woman should be doing that, and so on and so forth. The problem with that is, like you said, as society has shifted and times have changed and paradigms have morphed, and we're no longer living the traditional gender roles, people are now having to step out of what was traditionally set aside for the man and what was set aside for the woman. And so now we're having to pick up the slack in regards to certain things. And so you have some men who are having to learn to be less independent and more interdependent and work with inside of the confines of the family, because your wife is earning just as much as you are or more. She's just as successful as you are or more. So there's some teamwork that has to occur. And then even with some women and we've talked about this in the episode about, being a man in today's society, where we as men, because we are not always operating at the fullest of our capacity, we have eschewed some of our responsibilities. And then women are now having to step up and assume those responsibilities and be the head of the household, the primary breadwinner, the one and only parent at times. And so then it creates a dissonance when a young lady or a mom is now getting into a new relationship. And then you have a man who's operating in the space that he's supposed to be operating in. And he attempts to court her, date her, woo her, whatever, euphemism you want to use. It causes a friction, because it's like, I've only had to do this by myself. And because I've only had to do this by myself, now trying to shift into that role of being interdependent from independence, it creates a friction, it creates a dissonance. And I think that for a lot of us, understanding, and I have to have this conversation with my clients as well, it doesn't make you less than to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers.
Right.
It doesn't make you less than to acknowledge, like, I need help, because we all need help at some point in time, and we as human beings, we tend to be victims of our own success. And so the best way that I can equate it, like, I like to read books a lot, like, especially once I discovered Audible and I don't have to physically read the book anymore and I can listen to the book while I'm doing other things. Well, I'd be going through books like crazy. Anytime I'm not gainfully employed, I'm listening to a book. So I just finished reading this book called Those Who Remain. It was written by G. Michael Huff. And so he has a quote from the book. It says, "Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times." And I say that to say this, like, it creates a cycle. And so when we will create problems for ourselves and not realize that we create those problems for ourselves. So we will be here, and where we were, when we first started off as a species, we were joined and we took care of each other. As you said, the entire village took care of the land, took care of the livestock, took care of the children. And then because we became successful at that, we have those good times. And so because we have those good times, we've now matriculated into where, because we no longer have to worry about how we're going to survive and how we're going to be able to feed ourselves, how we're going to be able to protect ourselves, how are we going to be able to raise our children, we've now matriculated into a hard time where we struggle with just taking care of each other and right. Not even just each other, but ourselves. I mean, I preface, I was at the store this morning getting some things, and I'm walking out the store and I see this elderly lady. She's sitting in the car. She's sitting in the car. Her door is open and she's sitting kind of sideways out the car, and she's doing like this. So my first reaction was, why is this lady motioning to me? Like, I'm looking behind me, like, who is she motioning at? But she points at me and waves me over. So I come over and she's like, hey, I have trouble walking. Can you help me get into the store? And so I could have easily been like, this is not my problem. I was like, ma'am, you want me to go get you a motorized wheelchair? She was like, you'll do that for me? I was like, oh, sure. Went back in the store and got her a motorized wheelchair, rode it back out there to the car, helped her get in it. And then, you locked your car, you got your keys. And then she went on into the store. We overlook those small things of being able to take care of each other because, like you said, we get into this mindset of I'm only concerned about me. I'm concerned about getting mine. I'm concerned about me being successful, not really understanding that we come and we represent an entire tribe, an entire village. And I think that we've lost sight of that when it comes to this, when it comes to this type of conversation.
Well, I wanted to get into this next because we touched on it for a second. To quote Lil Boosie, right? We love the independent women, right? And I'm not even going to try to spell it right now because I'll probably forget how to spell it. IND, So I'm not going to do that. What I want to know is, especially like Anna, you'll be able to help me on this. Like, I do feel the way society portrays it, especially for African American women, is that they're supposed to be independent. And that brings up a lot of feelings for me because it's almost as if, Jim Crow has achieved what it was set out to achieve. There's no reason for a Black woman to have to be by herself, especially with children or taking care of kids. And I don't know, I think sometimes society is actually marketing that as a positive thing. And we've talked about it on this show before. And yes, it's positive if you can do things on your own. There's no problem with that. But the interdependence, this is the thing I think we need to push on our especially on our culture. And I'm going to ask you, Anna, because you're a woman. Are you seeing what I'm saying? That they're pushing that on us?
Yes, absolutely. Not only has Boosie rapped about it, you had Destiny's Child back in the day.
Right.
I mean, there's so many different artists, musicians that have pushed our women, African-American women, to be so very, very independent, which, like Raj was mentioning, you were talking about earlier, Kalhil, it creates a friction when you do want to be in a relationship with someone because it's difficult, so hard to release that control. Yes. And I myself have gotten to a point where I've ruined a really good relationship because I was afraid to let that control go to this man that I was dating. And he truly, sweetheart, cared about me and my child. I think I was like 30, so that wasn't too long ago. That was like 3 years ago. And I ruined it because I was like, if I let you come in here and change things the way I feel you're going to change things, I felt like I was going to lose myself. Now, whether or not that was true, I have no idea because I ruined it. But yes, we do get pushed to be independent. And, you see sometimes like on social media where like some men will say, not you guys, because you guys are special. Someone will say, she got to have what I have. And, she got to bring everything to the table that I'm able to bring to the table. And, all sorts of kind of stuff. And while, yes, it is true, some women earn just as much, if not more, than their male counterparts, a lot of them do not. And while, yes, African-American women are like the largest group that are educated with a college degree in the United States, we still don't earn a whole bunch of money. So it's hard because you want to be soft and you want to be feminine and you want to be interdependent and you want to be able to rely on your significant other. But sometimes it's hard. It's hard when you have had to learn to do it on your own. and then you're asking, when someone comes in, like a real man comes in and he's like, hey, I got it, let me take care of this stuff for you. I've turned gentlemen I've dated in the past, I've turned down them taking out my garbage because I'm like, no, you can't do anything for me, because when you leave, when you're not here, not saying, when we break up or whatever, but when you're not here, I'm going to have to do it for myself. So I don't want you doing anything for me. You just sit there and look pretty. So it's hard. It's definitely hard. It's definitely hard for African-American women, especially with the way, child support systems are set up, government welfare systems are set up. They are not set up to necessarily keep the families together. Right. It is sometimes more lucrative for you to be by yourself. And that, then is a cause, not the primary cause, but it is a cause of separation within the African-American community, which then in turns leads African-American women to being more independent and less interdependent.
Well, you're preaching right now, sis. You're preaching to the choir, because becoming a social worker, I grew up in with a single mom, a single parent, right? I had no idea that, my mom was explaining to me, because, we've had friends and other family members who's had to use government assistance before, right? And to get on a Section 8 voucher, and, I work as a social worker, and RJ tries to deny because he's an LPC, but he does some of the same work I did. And when you're working with HUD, and I had to work with them, only one person is on the lease. And if you are married, all right, you won't get that Section 8. If you have
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, if you have a boyfriend, he can't stay there. All right, so you start,
which is stupid.
Yeah, it's very stupid, and you start to see there's a setup, because if I need housing, I can't get married, and my man can't stay with me. All right, even if those are his kids. Now, when I look at that and I see the way it's set up through the government system, I see why certain people don't even want to get involved in that boat. I don't even want government assistance.
Right.
It's too much control, right? There's also something that we used in the mental health center. If you've had children and you're mentally ill, we will suggest, all of our medical staff in most places will suggest that, guess what? You need to be on birth control. And if you're not on birth control, you know what the other option is, right? So, and I've gotten to see these things with my own eyes. Okay. And when I look at our culture and our society, this is scary. As being someone who has been in touch with my divinity, right? I understand I have a spirit. All right. Those things hurt my spirit when I start getting involved in it. And I'm like, there's something wrong about this, because I want the family to be able to thrive. I want the family to be able to stay together in family nucleus. And so when I hear everybody talking about independent, these women need to be independent these days. I get it. I understand. Yeah. And they are. A lot of African American women have good jobs. They're going to school. They're graduating at an alarming rate. That's wonderful. But like you said, there's a ceiling on how much they can make. All right. And that's for all women, not just African American women. That's for all women in general. So at this point, they might still be struggling, even with a job that pays $50,000 a year, right? If you got 2 kids, that's like making $20,000 a year, and y'all know what I'm talking about, because it doesn't divide up.
Oof, yes.
And you're not getting any child support. And then I'm telling you not to get married if I give you housing. There's an issue with that, because we're not made to be individualistic. That's just what the society pushes. We are supposed to be collectivists. In Africa, they're still collective. Yes. Everybody, the village raises the child. The village helps out. So getting away from that, and some cultures I'm saying, all right, we don't want to fall in that trap. That's a trap for us to think that we need to be doing everything separate from a spouse. That's not how God intended it. And if you're going to, have some amount of spirit in you, you should feel there's some discernment going on. There's something wrong about her doing it all by herself and me watching. That's just, I'm just saying.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that for a lot of us, we are not only taught to, do things by ourselves, but then also because we're taught to do things by ourselves. Like Anna brought this up one time, and she was just like, people don't offer to help people who look like they have it under control.
Right.
And so for a lot of us, that's where, like I said earlier, we become
no, they don't.
we become victims of our own success because you're struggling. And yeah, people don't know that you're struggling. They don't see the struggle. They don't see the tears. They don't see the frustration. They don't see the you teetering on the edge of just collapsing, but they see that you've got what appears to be having it all together. And so because it appears that you have it all together, people don't offer to help. And I think that, like for a lot of us, because we're not taught, to put our pride on the back burner and actually ask for help and actually say, I don't have all the answers, and actually say, I don't have all the answers, and actually earnestly, just be honest with those around us, because those who matter to you, they're not going to mind helping you.
Right. And
assisting you. Now, for me, I'm one of those people that dwell in the camp of what a relationship is. For me, a relationship is not 50-50. A relationship is 100-100. That means, because 50-50 annotates that without my 50, you're less than. You're less than whole. At any given time, you need to be able to operate, with or without me, and I don't mean that from a standpoint of I'm leaving or I'm going somewhere, I'm going to pop smoke, but there may come a day where I don't have it to give you. And so that is what a relationship is. It's a partnership. And so for me, every relationship that I have, regardless if it's personal, romantic, or business, it's a partnership. I'm going to give you 100% of me every single time, and I need you to give me 100% of you every single time. That is what allows us to interdependently work together.
Right.
Because I can count on you. Now, in regards to terms, as a man, and I'm saying this to our female listeners, as a man, I'm telling you this right now, because we also, you have a lot of these guys who talk about women need to be submissive to men. That I do not believe in wholeheartedly. I do believe, and Anna and I have talked about this too. Leadership is earned. It's not given. It's a privilege. It's not a right.
Right.
So for me, yes, when a man shows you that he is trustworthy enough and he has your faith in him, that he can lead you and is not going to lead you off a cliff or into a bad spot, then yes, submit to that man. Work with that man. Now, just because you are submitting does not mean that you are a second-class citizen or you are behind him. That means you are standing right next to him. That means you make decisions together. There is no I, there is no me, there's only we. But a lot of people take that out of context and they think submitting means you're a second-class citizen, you're somebody's slave, you're somebody's servant, you're somebody's nursemaid. No. As my partner, we make all decisions together and we move together. We may not like each other all the time. We may not agree all the time, but when we step out into this world, when the world sees us, we're on the same page. Right. And for a lot of, these guys, these relationship coaches and all these different dudes that are telling women, you got to be submissive, and we have guys. And like I said, it goes back to and as a man, I can tell you, I see it every day. There are men who are not living in their purpose. And if you're not living in your purpose, how can you lead somebody else? How can I expect a woman to allow me to be interdependent with her when she's dealt with dudes who are not operating where they're supposed to be? And I think that is a huge thing that where, yes, society plays a part in that in regards to the media, in regards to the music, in regards to the movies and the shows that we watch on television that we're exposed to, but also the way that we are raising our children. It starts there too. Because when you are taught as a very young child how to work together, how to share, how to take turns, how to be kind to other people, or that golden rule that we were all taught when we were children, treat others the way you want to be treated. A lot of these problems that we see in society, we don't have.
Yeah, I would, not to make it too biblical, but I was watching something on YouTube and there's this pastor on there. He has a channel called in the basement with Tim Ross. I really like him. Sometimes he says stuff, it's like, nope. Give me a second to process that. But what he told me, what he said was that in terms of women being submissive to men, he phrased the question like this. He's like, how can you as a man expect a woman to be submissive to you when you're not submissive to God, right? Yeah. We all, whether you subscribe to that belief or not, we all have a maker. And if you as a man, especially one that says that you're a Christian, doesn't follow what God tells you to do, if you're disobedient and you're not submissive to him, how then do you expect your spouse or even your children to be submissive to you, to want to follow you? Yeah. And I have, dated men in the past. And what I have found is that for the ones that were really, how do I say this? When you can tell when a man, from a woman's perspective, you can tell when a man is serious about the things that he has going on in his life. Because when he brings you into, or when you all two join together into a relationship, it's different. I find that I didn't fight the connection as much. I found that when advice was given, I would listen instead of saying, you don't know what you're talking about, and I can't listen to you. And also, not only can I not, I will not. You're not a good leader because you're wishy-washy. Right, yep. And I can't respect that. Yeah, it's like when you're wishy-washy, and like, Raj, you said, when it seems as if you might lead me into a bad spot or off a cliff, I'm not following that. Me personally, especially for those of us who have children, I have a kid I have to think about. I can't just throw all my eggs into one basket with you. And you're not secure. You're not steady in your purpose and what it is that you're doing in your life. So I personally, being a semi-independent, interdependent woman, that's the type of man that I'm willing to follow. Somebody that is steady and he is secure and he knows who he is. He's not changing with the wind. He's not following the latest trend. If you're a trend follower, you can't be a good leader, because your stuff, your thought processes and your outlook may shift on a dime. And I'm not about that life. So yeah, you can't lead me out of a paper bag. I'm not going to follow you. Right. I'd rather be exactly where I'm at than to follow somebody that has, it's just an ever-changing mindset or a viewpoint. This is for me personally.
Right. When you're a woman and you have a man, and that man shows the slightest bit of inconsistency, like we said, the person was wishy-washy, right? And I know it's one of those things where, yes, we all make mistakes. We all make some bad moves. All right. Sometimes we might not rationalize or reason, critically think some things through. Right. Yeah. But when I start making it something that's habitual, I'm always doing something, all right, that's got me in some sort of financial trouble, accountability issues, and the woman is seeing it. And of course, I've been there in my 20s, you know what I mean? And in my 30s, I had to kind of, get it together. I was married at a young age in my latter 20s. And what the woman told me was that, hey, I can't trust you. I don't know what's going to happen. So I looked at that. And of course, I took defense. I got defensive, and a lot of men, we get defensive when a woman is saying something like that. But what she's giving you at this point is knowledge that you don't have about yourself. So the longer I was inconsistent, the further apart we got. And just like Anna said, all right, she didn't follow me, but actually it was to the point of rebellion. It was like, I'm not going to do that. And I got mad, and then I started to understand by talking to other people, talking to men who were real leaders of their household. And I started to get mentors and people explaining to me what being present is, what being consistent is. And I was like, hold up, I was none of those things. Why would this woman want to follow me? All right. Yeah. It broke me down, but it was for my good. I was no longer defensive.
Right.
Because I said, well, if she's seeing this and then other people are seeing this, and then it must be true. But in order for me to kind of learn and how to change that, I had to submit to someone, right? And that's when I tell people, if you don't have a higher power, if you're not in touch with the creator, if you're not in touch with something greater than yourselves, and you can walk out into the highest mountaintop, and that'll really let you know how small you really are as a human being when you look down on something, right? Or if you go out to the ocean and you look at how vast it is and you see how really small you are compared to God's wonders, then you start to realize that, hey, it's not all about me. All right. And you know what?
Right.
Some of these people might see some stuff in me that needs to be changed. And when men finally come to that realization, like you said, a good leader also has to be able to follow, right? You have to have that interchangeability when you're in a relationship. All right. My wife might have some awesome ideas, and she does. My second wife, there's some awesome ideas she has. And I have to be able to receive that, right? In order for us to have a relationship that works collectively, right? And so I have to listen to her. But if I only rely on my own understanding and I don't see anything from anybody else's viewpoint, right? And I'm so independent and it's always got to be my way, at this point, I'm actually not being a leader. All right. I'm being a dictator, a narcissist. There's a lot of other words that go with that. Yeah. If I'm the only one that has to get it my way. And I think that we're getting into a situation where socially we're being misguided. Any relationship you're in should be something where y'all are interdependent upon one another, not codependent. All right. Not I'm independent and we're both independent. No, we have to work together. That's what relationships mean. The ability to work together. So it scares me, like I said, the way the society is shifting. And for somebody like myself who had to learn the hard way, all right, most women aren't going to follow you if you don't know what you're doing. They're not.
And tell them, say it again.
If you don't know what you're doing, a woman is not going to follow you. And she has a right not to.
No.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier about absence fosters independence while presence fosters interdependence. Right. You talked about, faith, and you talk about consistency. When you were consistently present, you were consistently doing the things that exhibit that someone can trust you and someone that can have faith in you and someone can depend on you. Guess what? They're willing to work with you and work towards a shared purpose. But when you're wishy-washy, you're inconsistent, you pop in and out, you're not there, then you are there, then you're back again, then you're gone again. Guess what? People start operating in a space of, I don't need you. I don't need you, nor do I want you, because if I put my energy into this person's going to be here, or these people are going to be here, or this system is going to be here, and then poof, they're not. Where does that leave me and the people that I have to answer to? And so for us, it goes back to, like you said, being consistent and being able to trust one another. But again, that means you have to exhibit those behaviors. You have to exhibit that you can be trusted and that you can be consistent and that the things that you are doing are conducive to the collective being successful. Right. Because for a lot of us, we get caught up in the mindset of me. I want to be successful. I want to win. I want this. I want that. Everything is always preceded by I. And my dad in one of his many lessons of Philip in the book of Philip, he talks about joy. Jesus first, others second, yourself last. And I mean, like when he used to say that, I'm like, man, this dude tripping. Here he go again. Here he go again with this foolishness. But he's right though. When you put God first, because like you said, we all answer to somebody, regardless if you believe in God or whoever or multiple gods, you answer to somebody. You're held accountable and responsible to someone or a higher power or higher powers. You put that first, you put others ahead of yourself. You will never be lacking when you are always putting some other people ahead of yourself. But for a lot of us, again, like you said, we are in this individualistic mindset instead of a collectivist mindset of taking care of our needs first. But when we are constantly looking at taking care of the tribe and the clan and the family and, you know, our neighbors, guess what? They tend to do the same for us.
Right.
They tend to do the same for us. And I mean, I think that it goes back to, like I said, you know, just the way that we're teaching and raising our children. We're, you know, because 90% of the lessons that you receive in life, they start at home. You learn how to walk at home. You learn how to use the toilet at home. You learn how to eat at home. You learn how to put your clothes on at home. These are not lessons that you learn out in the world. Now, there are going to be some lessons that you learn out in the world, you know, but 90% of the life lessons that you learn as you matriculate and grow in life start at home. They start with your mom and dad. So it goes back to like what you guys were saying earlier about the home life. When you see interdependence being executed at home, guess what? You're more likely to be interdependent with other people. Mm-hmm. But when you see dad struggling by himself or mom struggling by herself, guess what you're more likely to do? You're more likely to do what you see because it's real to you, because I see that. And so for me, I always talk about this, you know, like with my clients, especially when they have younger kids, you know, if you, and I tell them this, especially like when they're in a bad spot or, you know, they may be struggling with an addiction or they may be struggling to overcome whatever they're trying to overcome. If you can't do it for yourself, you need to be able to do it for them, because what they see you going through right now, they may come to that same hurdle. And by seeing you overcome it, that means that I can overcome it too if I face it.
Right.
Versus they see you quit, it makes it easier for them to quit. It makes it easier for them to give up. And I remember I got that idea from a poster I had seen. It was like a lion walking, and it's a male lion and a cub walking behind him a little ways back. And he's like, I wanted to quit so many times, so I turned around and saw who was watching behind me. And you know, like that's where for me, I'm a big proponent of, you know, parenthood and raising your children, because again, society will put things out there for your kids. They'll put, you know, society will put things out there for your kids, and you as a parent, you as a caregiver have to be the person that's counter programming the things that they're being inundated with from outside your home, you know, because as you guys both alluded to, and you're both correct about, society does push this, you know, independence. You know, like you said, there's numerous rap songs about it, numerous R&B songs about it. You know, you have, you know, both men and women talk about getting your bag and being concerned about you. And I got to do this and I got to do that, you know, not being concerned about the next person. And again, we see how well society worked when we were concerned about each other versus how society works now when we're only concerned about ourselves.
Now, I will say that there is a counter to being interdependent. And I think that sometimes you have to look out for yourself. There are certain instances in which you have to look out for yourself, because being interdependent or codependent with either one other person or a group of other people just doesn't work quite as well as maybe it should. You know, it may hold you back. It may hinder you and keep you from achieving your goals. And sometimes you got to kind of cut the purse strings, or, you know, cut the rucksack off your back so you can continue to make it up the mountain. And then you turn around and you try to help people along the way. You know, there's independence is all I say. All that to say is that independence is not necessarily it's not totally bad. You have to have enough discernment and understanding of who you are and where you want to go and what goals you want to achieve to say, you know what, I love my people, but you all aren't really helping me. And if I can do this faster on my own and then come back and get you, then maybe that's something that should be done. Like when you go get your bag, get your bag. But once you get the bag, turn around and show somebody else how to get the bag.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we're never, you know, I'm never knocking someone for taking care of their needs, right? Mm-hmm. We all have these hierarchy of needs, right? And if I don't have food, clothes, and shelter, I'm no good to anybody anyway, because that's all I'm going to be thinking about. I can't move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs if I can't get those basic needs met, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you're gonna have to do a job by yourself. Okay, you're gonna have to put some money aside if you want your own place to live. Those are things that people have to do regardless. And I want people to understand we're not telling you not to show some independence or to show some ability to do beyond what you're seeing in your environment, because you might not be seeing people do things that are positive. And of course, you need to step outside of that comfort zone. You are going to have to probably be independent. Everybody else is not doing something positive. Auntie, uncle, brother, sister, mother, they're all doing some negative things, or they're all getting high, or whatever they're doing. Yeah, you might have to step out on your own, but you can still find good mentors. All right. Good people who are in whatever field that you want to get into, will actually see if they can get you a job or help you with your applying for some school loans or whatever it is. You can use some other resources outside of that. And it is being independent. You're going out on your own. Like I told my 16-year-old son, my stepson was like, "Oh, I don't like this job. I'm gonna quit." I said, "Well, start looking for another job, right? Stuff you're gonna have to do
before you quit. Yes, please.
Yeah, before you quit, look for another job. You don't like the way the manager's treating you. You don't like the way certain things are going. You know what? You don't pay any bills. It's okay for you to step out. I'm not telling you to quit, but look for another job. Do something." And I've been trying to force him to do stuff on his own. I'm not going to take you. You're not 15. You're 16 going on 17. I'm not taking you door to door to look for jobs. You have a car. Go out there and look for a new job and then leave that job. So there are certain things you need to be independent about, and you need to do certain things on your own. But when it comes to raising a family, or when it comes to working on being productive in a larger way, right? You want to go to college, you want to go to university, you're going to need some help.
Oh, for sure.
There's certain things that you need help from. But yes, people should have some level of independence where they can survive on their own. So I don't want people to take away from here. Well, I can't be independent. No, it's saying that when there's an opportunity for you to use resources that are readily available, you should use them. You should be able to rely on your
use them. Yes.
Right. Yes. You should be able to rely on some family members. If you don't have any that are positive people, like I said, you have to step outside the box and rely on some other people who might be able to give you some help. But what we're saying is no one person is an island where they should be forcing themselves to do it on their own. No, you definitely need to be able to have some help come from outside of yourself. And matter of fact, if I isolate, all right, and it's just my thinking alone, right, and I don't have anybody else, all right, my best thinking might get me set up and I'll be in jail, because I've had many a times where I've had a crazy thought in my head. That person try to cut me off the road. I should chase him down. Well, luckily, I'm a little more rational now, or sometimes, I might call my wife or call somebody else and I'll run it by them and they'll be like, "Don't do that." All right. That's not smart. All right. I've had times when I work with RJ, he'll tell you, "I call, man, this dude over here trying to fight me, man. Hey, look, you better." He was like, "Kalhil, you better go ahead and call the police and come on back." All right. We've had situations, clients are attacking me and stuff, and I'm thinking I got to throw down. Okay. Look, it's always good to have someone else, all right, to help us when it comes to thinking rationally, when it comes to making good decisions. All right. Good decisions are made with a multitude of counselors. You got to have some people around you. So that's all I'm saying. It's okay for you to be independent, but in relationships, that doesn't look right. If I have a spouse and I'm not worried, my spouse doing their own thing and I'm doing my own thing, what are we, roommates?
Yeah, y'all hanging out.
We hanging out.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with both of you that you do need some semblance of independence. And that's where, like I said, being able to pull from both sides of the argument, being able to find that right in the middle spot where you can do things by yourself, but then also it doesn't make you weaker or less than or soft.
Right.
To be able to say, I need help or to allow someone to assist you, because more you can never, turn down more. I'm always, if I have $1 and someone's willing to give me $5, I'm taking that $5 because 5 is more than 1. If I have $50 and a person's willing to give me $500, I'm taking that $500 because 500 is more than 50.
Right.
But for a lot of us, like I said, we have a negative connotation associated with interdependence instead of understanding that both of them are good, but they should be used in equal measure. They should be used in equal measure, and they should be applied in equal measure. And I think that for a lot of us not really understanding, one can't really survive without the other, we tend to jump onto the bandwagon of independence. And that's what I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be independent. I'm supposed to do everything by myself. And the thing is, I guarantee you, anybody who has struggled, anybody who has gone through something that was really hard, I guarantee you, if you ask them, would you have liked some help or preferred some help with that task or that objective? I guarantee you they say yes. Astoundingly yes. Resoundingly yes. Because it's much easier to lift 500 pounds with
many times, many
than it is to lift it with one person. If you're in the gym and you're trying to get that bar up and you're struggling, somebody comes and spots it for you. Is it not easier when they help you? Or you for the sake of your pride, you're just about to let it drop on your chest and kill you.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with allowing people to assist you, but there's also nothing wrong with being independent as well, because at some point in time, someone has to show everyone else around them what right looks like.
Right.
Because you may be in an environment where everyone else is doing the wrong things. And so you, as the one and only person, the independent person, has to show people that there is a better way or what right looks like. Hey, eating things raw, that's probably not a good idea. If we cook it with this heat right here, this fire, this stuff that burns, it tastes a little bit better. Then next thing you know, everybody starts doing it, and so it's situations like that where sometimes someone has to take that leap of faith, that step out on faith, and, be willing to try something different, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. So if you're trying to have things that you've never had, you got to be willing to try things you've never done before. Right. And I think that for a lot of us, if we want to be able to take things to a new level and reach new heights and, unlock new achievements, we got to be willing to acknowledge like, hey, I might need some help here and there. I might need some assistance. Because even like what you said, Kalhil, sometimes our own ideas are bad ideas. We as human beings are not meant to be by ourselves. This is a scientific fact that when you are left alone with no other human interaction for long periods of time, you start to become unwell mentally and emotionally and spiritually.
To deteriorate.
Mm-hmm. You mentally, like I've watched, like those prison shows where guys are locked up in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. After a while of being locked up with no other human interaction for long periods of time, people start to hallucinate. They start to become very paranoid because their mind it needs that human interaction. And that should be a sign to you that we are not meant to operate by ourselves. We are not meant to be by ourselves because we are far stronger. You can do far more damage with a closed fist than an individual finger. You laugh at it, but it's true. If I poke you, this doesn't do as much damage as this right here.
Like put one of them on you, right?
Yeah, and so for a lot of us, we want to be the finger that's just jabbing, versus being the closed fist, operating with 4 other fingers and doing some real damage in this world. And so that's the crux of our conversation today is being willing to pull from both sides of the argument. It's okay to be independent. It is absolutely okay, because sometimes we have to be that person that shows everybody else what right looks like. We have to show people, Sometimes we have to be that person. And then other times, other people have to show us. We become part of the tribe. We become part of the family. We become part of the herd or the pack or whatever, synonym you want to use. And so just because you become a member of the pack or a member of the herd or a member of the tribe, it doesn't make you less than. It actually makes you stronger. It actually makes you better because you have a more diversified knowledge base because you have so many brains that are applied to one problem. Like me, Anna, my dad, and my stepmom. I remember this a few years back. We were hanging these pictures up in this house, and we all, as college educated individuals, it took us forever hang these pictures up on the wall. And I'm just like, how? Because everybody was looking at it from a different perspective. And because everybody was looking at it from a different perspective, everyone's ideas were different. So Anna had one set of ideas. My dad had another set of ideas. I had another set of ideas. My stepmom had a different set of ideas. And it wasn't until we just cycled through everyone's ideas to see which one worked that things actually went a lot smoother. But just imagine how much more difficult it would have been for Anna to hang these pictures up on the wall if she had just been doing it by herself.
Right.
It's actually easier for me to do it by myself, but yes, that
you might have had more focus.
Yes. Yeah, more focus, like it's just right dress. But yes, So your point, that is correct though. Yes.
But and I get where RJ's coming from, but I also get where Anna's mind state is because there is certain things that if I'm by myself and it's a one person task and if too many hands in it, it'll cause some chaos, right? Then
facts.
Yeah. But at the same time, usually, all right, when I worked as a electrician in the Washington, D.C. Union, I started out as a helper. And when they put me in there, some of these guys, they were fast with what they were doing. And there were a lot of them was like, man, I don't need no helper. And the ones that actually took their time and did things and they measured twice, cut once, and they were very, very time efficient, they wanted me. Like if I don't have to go dig in a bag for some tools and you pass me the right tool, and I knew my tools and stuff. So hammer, Klein's pliers. I need this. I need that. I need that. Boom. And I was doing that. They were moving very fast and very efficient. So it is better to usually have multiple people. And if you have too many, it can cause a lot of chaos. So nobody's saying that it's not bad to have a lot of different minds looking at things. You know what I mean? But what we're saying is you got to look at it from both sides, and you got to know when, hey, I might need to do this on my own, and then also you have to be humble enough to know when you need help. I think that's what I've got from this conversation so far, and I'm gonna pass it to you all to finish it.
So we're gonna end the conversation here. This is Try Not to Overthink It. Signing out. I'm RJ.
I'm Kalhil.
And if you like what you heard, we can be found on YouTube as Try Not to Overthink It. We are slowly and steadily, climbing, trying to get you on the road to 10K subscribers. And so, everyone that has become part of the tribe and joined the conversations with us, we thank you for everything that you do. We love you. And if if you're new to the tribe, you're new to the channel, we ask that you like, share, subscribe, turn your notifications on because we do drop content every week. And if you would prefer to listen to the conversation instead of watch it, we can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, pretty much everywhere that an audio file can be located, we can be found. But again, if you listen to it, you miss out on these beautiful faces as well as the antics that go on during the conversations. So if you happen to come across us, please check out both platforms because it's a small thing for you, but it's a big thing for us, and we definitely appreciate the support. But this is us signing out, and we will catch you in the next episode. Later.